Parar para Vender é um espaço onde recebemos convidados de várias áreas, analisamos vários temas com o objetivo de estabelecermos um plano de ação. Se por um lado temos vendedores que defendem a típica expressão mais vale feito que perfeito, por outro lado há profissionais que recolhem e analisam bastantes dados antes de tomarem uma decisão. Proponho que reserve 1 hora para pensar sobre a nossa atividade, métodos de prospecção, identificação de necessidades, fecho, acompanhamento de clientes e estabelecimento de parcerias. Contamos convosco.
Hey, Parar para Vender listeners! Want to supercharge your business skills? Check out Neuro Business School in Barcelona. They mix business education with the latest neuroscience techniques. They offer MBA, master's, and bachelor degrees, both online and in person. Use the promo code Parar para Vender 5 to get 5% off any program. Don't miss out. Visit Neuro Business School today.
Olá, boa tarde a todos. Hi everyone. Thank you all for being here. Today we are going to receive Melina Palmer. Melina Palmer is a globally celebrated keynote speaker with a mission to help great brands and people within them do greater things by leveraging the power of behavioral economics. She is CEO of the Brainy Business, which provides behavioral economics training and consulting to business of all sizes from around the world. Her podcast, my number one podcast, The Brainy Business, Understanding the Psychology of Why People Buy, is more than 1 million downloads from over 170 countries. Oh my God. Melina teach applied behavioral economics through the Texas AEM Human Behavior Lab, and she has a behavioral economic master's from the Chicago School. She has 3 bestsellers, not one, but 3, okay? First book, which I have read several times, What Your Customers Want and Can't Tell You, has various awards and was a finalist in 2 categories of the International Book Awards. Then she has the second book, What Your Employees Needs and Can't Tell You. And finally, the last one, and the reasons we are here, it is The Truth About Pricing. So, Melina Palmer, thank you a lot for being here. How are you, Melina?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
No. Well, let me tell you one thing. And I have already told you many times in the last emails. In the last 3 years, you have become a professional reference, leading me to take a master's degree in Neuro Business. And I would like to thank you for making this event a reality. And who hears your podcast knows the expression, be thoughtful. And let me say that you being here, these expressions makes perfect sense right now for me. You are really a thoughtful person. Thank you a lot, Melina.
Of course. Thank you. And congratulations. I know we were talking a little bit about your master's that you're working on, and I'm excited to hear how your thesis goes.
Thank you. Melina, let's try to start with the fundamentals. So, what is, before talking about the pricing, what is behavioral economics?
For sure. I always like to say, that if traditional economics and psychology had a baby, we would have behavioral economics. And essentially, the reason that the field came about is because traditional economics assumes logical people making rational choices in everything they do all of the time. And it's based on what, someone somewhere said people should do. But we don't always do what that person there thinks we should, right? We have all the times that we intend to exercise or eat right, or in this case, right, we really plan to make all those sales calls and to send those pitch emails. And then the time comes and maybe we find ourselves distracted and we're doing something else. So, what behavioral economics does is it is working to understand the rules that the brain is using to make decisions so
Mm-hmm.
that you can plan your communications, and different aspects of business is at least how I apply it, so that you can do more of what you would like to do instead of getting stuck in weird traps, and just communicating in a way that makes it so it's easier for customers to buy and employees to buy in.
Okay, okay. So we can say that behavioral economics, it's like economic plus psychology plus knowing how the brain works, something
Yes.
like that. Okay.
Yes.
So talking now a little more about the pricing and the reasons behind this book that I have read 3 times. Okay. It is a little dirty, but it's for good reasons. Okay.
Yes.
What are some of the key psychological principles from behavioral economics that business should consider when setting pricing strategies?
Well, there are, of course, a lot of them, which is why there's a book on it. But really, just to know that psychology is so important when it comes to pricing. And it's not just about understanding the psychology of the person that is buying from you. One of the
Mhm,
things I think is really different about my book is I think that it's so important to talk about you as the person who is selling and psychology as it applies to you as it comes to setting price, talking about price, thinking about the price, and putting together, different products and services that you may want to be
mhm,
offering. And so, knowing that we can, get in our own way and we say things in a way that we think we might want to be sold to, but comes off really weird sometimes. We like forget how we buy things. And a big reason for this is because our brains are actually in two different systems. I just talk about them as the conscious brain and subconscious brain because I think that's the easiest thing to remember. But essentially, humans, it turns out, research shows we make up to 35,000 decisions a day on average, each of us. And so much of that is done subconsciously using habits, understanding of this love of the status quo and predictability. And so by having things, understanding the rules that subconscious is making is really, really important because, we say we made 35,000 decisions yesterday. How many of them do you actually remember
of
making?
course.
No, nowhere close to it. And so it's the same for when you sell and when you buy. And so the brain that is buying, so that
Mhm,
that action is done mostly subconsciously. And when you sit down and think about, how you're going to write this sales email, or you're thinking about the pitch and you get like way in your own head about it, right? We've all been there. You now are thinking consciously about how you think you might want to buy, but the person on the other side is not necessarily thinking about it in the same way. So that's where the problem comes in, and why
mhm.
this is so important, that when we understand some of these rules, it can make it so it's easier when we're doing our pitches, when we're building out products and services. So one one example of this, sorry,
Don't worry,
it
don't
has
worry. No worries.
one example of this, I got too excited, I guess, but comes up when we think about how you present options. And I don't talk about this until way late in the book, but it's something that comes up really often for people, is
Mhm,
that we feel like we have to start low and work our way up, right? And
okay.
then typically, often, as you're building out programs, you may have it so that the thing you really want people to buy is the most expensive thing. You like stop there with what you think is your best offer. And you absolutely should not do this. So, for
Of
one,
course.
so the two concepts we have at play here really is one that is of anchoring and
Mm-hmm.
understanding how we set either low or high anchors, as well as relativity, and that our brains like comparisons, and we need comparisons to make a decision. So if you start with your low anchor, right, and if you were to say, well, we have this, let's say you want to sell something that's $2,500, right? So you have this $2,500 thing that you want to sell. And you start and say, well, I've got something, it's as little as $15 a month. You can sign up for this thing that we have as this, program that you can do. And we also have this $2,500 option, and that's a really good deal. And even maybe we'll say you created the bigger thing, right? And then you say, or there's something that's, 5,000 if you want that. Which one do you want? Right? Like everyone's picking, I think I said $15 a month, right? Like there's no way that we're jumping up. 2,500 sounds crazy, when you started that low. But if you flip and say, we have this $5,000 option that's available, and it's something that you can get. We also have something that's just $2,500, and most people pick this one. We've built that out for to be the best fit for everybody. Which one of those seems like the best fit for you?
Of course. And here the communication is the key.
Right.
Because when you talk about the 5,000 and you talk with fear, in the other part, people will look like, well, probably he's pushing me, it's not a good product. And I always remember when you talk in your podcast about when you have sold airplane tickets. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not the price, it's the solution for them.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It was interesting. So as you said, I worked in a call center at an airline, and I got that job when I was 18 years old, and was there for a few years in different roles. And it's, I think everyone should work in a call center for one thing at some point, right? Because it's
I have already worked in one.
People just love yelling at people on the phone. It's very fun. But part of our training, is that it's not your job to judge whether it's expensive or not. For a business traveler or somebody that really needs to be on a specific flight, they don't necessarily think about the funds in the same way that you do. And if they ask for something specific, you say the price, and you ask the closing sort of question of saying that's $10,752.63. Would you like to move forward with that today? And smile and wait.
In that time, people is not searching the price, is searching the solution.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes someone would say, a lot of times, right? People go, whoa, like, yikes, is there another option available? And then, you can help them work on something. But more often than you would expect, people say, yep, sounds good. And just like, here's my card, right? And so it was a very, I think it was an important foundational experience for me to know that things that to me as a 18, 19, 20-year-old was saying, like, I wouldn't be able to afford that. But it's not about me, right? That's not what my role is in that process. Yeah.
Because in that time, it's not your pain.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Melina, well, this podcast, Parar para Vender, in English it is stop to sell, like something we need to stop, to reflect, and then we are going to sell. Okay, that's the reason behind this. So I do believe salespeople should work on themselves before looking at the market. And I found your book, The Truth About Pricing, interesting because it advocates something similar. Before setting price, companies should decide if they want to be known as a value or quality company. Can you explain a little more about the importance of this initial step?
Absolutely. And as you said, so in the book, I have multiple steps for people to take. And This was as close as I could get. I know when it gets to pricing, people tend to say, just do it for me. I don't want to just pick tell me what I should charge. And so really this book is as close as I can get to answer this question and then do this thing and then do this and then do that, and trying to really make it as actionable as possible so you can come out on the other side feeling confident about your prices. And to the point you were making, so I have in part 2 of the book, there are 6 chapters of different sections of the areas that you should be thinking about. The first one is called you, right? So it's, you got to work on you and your mindset and all of your stuff, which, I already talked a little bit about why on that psychology piece at the beginning. But that's so important, because if you're not confident, if you aren't feeling comfortable in what you're going to be talking about, it just won't work. Even, the best price there is, right? It's not going to work out for you. So one of those things, as you said, is to decide if you want your business to be quality or value. And I know that you're listening. You say, I want both of those things. Those are both good. I want to be both. And the problem is when you live in that gray space, and it's our natural tendency to want to have a little bit of both, and that's okay. But it's okay to want that. It's not okay to live in one of those areas, right? And so when we are that way, it makes it so it's confusing for the potential customer. It just makes it harder for them to buy from us. And so picking a path and just sticking with it, owning whichever side you're going to be on, is an amazing first step in helping it to be easy for people to classify you and therefore buy from you more often. So the quality side, these are luxury type of goods, but they don't have to be, it's not like you have to be Louis Vuitton, right? There are different phases of this, but so luxury type of goods, often, sometimes gifts can be falling into this area. If you work in services, this might be that you have extra investment into your research and development or additional certifications. And so it's very much, though, built on this strong reputation of quality, right? And that is what you are about over here. And on that side, just one example of a thing that you would do differently is rounded number pricing. So if you say it's 500 instead of 499, it already feels very different. So it's not to say that on a quality side that you can't be providing good value in what it is that you are selling. So it's not just exorbitantly priced for no reason, but you lead with quality. And getting back like here to Louis Vuitton, like they don't do sales. They will never do sales. They've said that that's not a thing they're going to do. When they have, they don't sell anywhere other than their own licensed locations. Like they are very specific about where, when, how that you can get materials from Louis Vuitton. And that is very clearly on the quality side of things.
Okay.
Our other side being value. And this is, wanting to be seen as that bargain, deal, discount. And it just really is about being a good value for people you're selling to. Again, can be very high quality. You can still have good quality items. It's not that it has to be, cheap junk or something, but you're leading with that value side. This is Costco. This is Walmart. And knowing that those are great business models, they do very well for those companies. But if you're buying at Costco, as an example, they have it very much feels like a warehouse when you're there in the stores, and they don't invest in expensive advertising and things because they're reinvesting in the value they're providing to their members. I also talk about Ryanair in the book and how they just really own being on that value side, and talking about how they have cheap flights, right? Cheap is a word that a lot of businesses would shy away from. But for Ryanair and the customers that are looking to buy from them, that's exactly what they want. They want cheap flights, right? That's what you're looking for. So again, when you businesses get into trouble because typically everyone thinks, well, of course, we want to be of quality. And then you see people are doing sales or something at a holiday or year end, and you go, well, I guess we better run a discount. And it just is confusing and kind of jumbled for people.
Yes, and when I read the book and you talk about the price topic, and you said, well, the quality, you don't need to talk about the 4,099, and I thought there, and I want to know your opinion. It's more like a consistency. If you are looking for a price, it means that you aren't looking for quality. So if you are in the quality part of the site, it means that, well, it is 5,000. That's the price, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that means that that's the important. First, you need to know what part you are. If you are in quality or if you are in the price. Once we have defined ourselves, we move on the next step, and it is the client. Okay, we will use concepts from behavioral economics to capture the customer's attentions, and then in that topic, you talk about the nudge moments. Okay, how can we create nudge moments, Melina?
Yeah. So, in the area, the field of behavioral economics, behavioral science, we really work in the space of nudges and nudging, and knowing that if we go back to those thousands of daily decisions, our entire life, all of us, is just this experience of a bunch of little micro moments and tiny
Mm-hmm.
choices and decisions, right? And so, in some of those, moments are more nudgeable than others. I like to talk about it like if you think about bumpers, if you were bowling, right, where you're able to kind of keep somebody
Mm-hmm.
on the path. Sometimes where they're like definitely not nudgeable, and sometimes it's a lot easier to nudge someone. So once if somebody's already canceled their service, whatever they have with you, right? It's definitely gone to where it's a lot harder to kind of nudge them back into the world, right? You're having to do a lot to get them back. But if we think about the tiny micro steps throughout the experience that someone has with you, there were moments almost guaranteed where things happened. Maybe they reached out, they sent an email or communicated with your chat, or they sat on hold, or they did something and they complained, or they went out on social media and said something that they were upset about. That was likely a more nudgeable type of a moment where if you would have
Mm-hmm.
swooped in, and it doesn't mean you have to give away a bunch of free stuff or anything, right? But just being kind to them, listening and saying, I hear you, I see you, and let's move forward. Getting back to working in the airline call center. Um, I used to kind of play a game to see, because I mean, you have to do something to get through the day sometimes. But I ended up in what was the customer care department, and that was combined of people that had a really bad experience and are calling to complain and get free tickets. I was in that department, and you
Okay.
can't give everyone free tickets, right? But I used to kind of play this game of how, if somebody was upset, what could I do if I could get them to be really delighted, feeling joyful at the end of that call, regardless of how they came in. And, just taking the time to hear them and say, that sounds frustrating. I'm really sorry that happened to you. Anyone who's been stuck in an airport for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, like that
It's a
is
lot.
terrible. It's awful. And so if you can just hear and say, "Man, I get it. I'm so sorry that happened," right? People will deflate a little bit, right? And in a way that they can come off that feeling of being so angry. And if you help them to feel seen, maybe they're going to stay, right? That's a more nudgeable moment versus if you treat them badly, then you've
No.
maybe nudged them too far in the other direction. So really taking some time to look at your experience And knowing that there are a lot of points in those micro moments, and it may feel a little bit overwhelming, but put them all out there and start to say, is this a positive or a negative moment, and try to quantify it in some way, right? If you were to say this is a -5, this is a +8 or whatever, right? As you go
Okay.
through this experience, and be as honest as you can, because the only person you're hurting if you try to gloss over those bad moments is yourself. And as you go through that, you can see where you have some peaks, either positive or negative, and look at how you might be, what moments are more nudgeable than others, and try to remove negative peaks from the experience where you can, and then look for opportunities to bolster those positive moments. And the good news is, when it comes to experiences, and we look back and say, how do you feel about a brand? How do you feel about this person, this anything? We really just look at two moments, which are the peak and the end. It's called the peak end rule, conveniently. And so the peak, you want to, again, make it so that the peak experience is not a bad one. So that's why I said to remove those negative ones. So you have a peak positive experience and have a really great end. And that's the key. And to know that that end is a moving target, right? So you're continually trying to
Yes.
uplift experiences with you.
I think that's the key for repeating sales.
Yeah.
When you
sure.
keep the good memories from the experience, from the brand, from the company, the salesperson, whatever.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, definitely. And just knowing that so often when you look at a journey map, right, we have something bad that happens, and then you can have a huge shoot straight up, right, that it was something really good happened. And again, it doesn't have to be expensive for the company in that moment, but knowing that if you just show up, give a little bit of extra effort, help the person to know that you hear them and you get it, and you're going to make something right when something bad happened. It's so easy to turn those negative moments into positive peaks, and just knowing what the real end is. Even if someone says they're so mad and they're never coming back and whatever, it's often not the real end. I have a great example from Disney and Disneyland, and that back in the day. So it's important to know what the true end of your experience is, right? So if you think about Disneyland or Disney World or whatever's
Euro Disney in our case.
Euro Disney, right? And I think they have Disney Sea in Japan or something. So, but if you look at these experiences, you'd think that the experience ends when you leave the park, right? That's when Disneyland, Disney World, that's when their job is over. But it's really not. And decades ago, Disney, knowing better, they looked to see what the true end moment was. And back when we all had to get film developed, you go to, I remember as a kid waiting, for weeks sometimes to get pictures back from a trip that you could share with people. When you would get those pictures back and being able to show them to people and relive the experience, Disney knew this was the real end moment of that experience. And so they worked with Kodak, because everything was printed on Kodak paper at that time, to paint the park in colors that would look best, that would pop when they were printed on Kodak paper, so that you didn't get your pictures back and go, ugh, this looks kind of dull and shabby. I don't remember it being that way, right? But you're gonna go, whoa, like, wow, that looks so great. That's so fun, right? And we still have that now with Instagram and anything else. And, we're getting reminders from Facebook about, on this day, however many years ago. And so knowing that the experience lives on, and understand and thinking about what you can do up front today to make it so that that's going to really shine when they remember what happened. And really, Peter Steidl had said best, I really love this quote, I used all the time, that a brand is a memory. And when we think about those experiences, those micro moments, like your brand is just a series of micro moments that form a memory of what people think about you. That's why being consistent is so important. If you have omni-channel experiences, you're thinking about, if you're in person is completely different than who you are online, that's not great, right? It's making this very disjointed memory of what your brand is. And so where you can get that consistent and where you can line those things up and be thinking about what can we do today that will make this amazing for somebody tomorrow or 2 years from now. It does take a little bit of extra work, but it can be really fun, right? To find those cool things you can do.
And it's fun, and you don't have to waste a lot of money. Okay. Now that you are explaining that, I remember in your book when you communicate the difference between satisfaction and being delight.
Yes.
Being delight is with a surprise.
Yep.
Okay. And suddenly, well, it's not prepared, but suddenly I remember, I think, a lot of years ago, I was credit insurance agent. Okay. And when my agency, when it was the 15th anniversary, I decided to give a little gift to my clients, to my customers. And it was a little box. It costs like 20 cents. And each year insurance credit for 15 year cleaning the bad invoice. Only that. And people look and said, wow. And here, the cleaning, it's here. And it is a traditional soup. Cleaning, okay, the double. And the people, even today, when people see me and say, look, Eduardo, I remember when you gave me the soup and the reason that you are cleaning us the bed, the invoice and the beds and everything else. And that's the reasons you don't need to put a lot of money. You just need to be a little creative and try to go to the pain and the experience of the person. Well, because like a behavioral economics, like you are, emotion is everything. And I think here it's the point. The point is we are in a technological time, technological age, but I do believe that humans are the difference. Communication
Definitely.
and be present are the difference.
Yeah. And that's like, writing a handwritten note these days, especially, right? And it's so easy to see. So people like to do the font that looks like it's handwritten, but it's obviously not. And like all the things you can be doing to make it look like you cared enough to put in some effort. Where it's like, I mean, to me, I would rather be sending 100 things that I can do really thoughtfully and actually write them out and do whatever that is, than send 10,000 things that make it look like I don't care enough to actually write the thing, right? So being able to put in that little bit of effort, a lot of times, like you said, in this digital technological age, just showing that you cared enough to do something yourself, that you put in your own time, is enough to have people go, whoa, like they really care about this. And like you said, that space of thoughtfulness of being able to explain why you did the thing in a way that's maybe a little bit funny. It's going to form a memory for someone and they're going to remember that. That was one of your positive peaks, right? That is lasting.
Yes.
It's standing the test of time. And I love that it didn't have to be really, really expensive to be able to do that. One tip that I always give to people too is, the holidays is a time where it feels like everyone's giving gifts. And so there's this like year end, we have to send all our clients a gift of some sort. The problem is, so if you follow the herd in that way, and we're a herding species, so we feel like we need to do that. If you send a gift at the same time everyone is sending gifts, you're just one of the many things that we received and that, having worked on that side of the world before, we had, tables of stuff that came from all the vendors in that November, December timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, who wants this box of chocolates or this random thing? You'd have to find people to get rid of all the stuff that would come in. You don't remember who sent what.
No,
It's
you
just
don't
a whole bunch
remember.
of stuff. But if you are one of the many things there, you're never going to stand out, especially if you're just sending a little card or something, right? But if you send your stuff in March or
Mm-hmm.
August or whatnot, right? You are going to be the only thing that's coming in at that time, right? And that is more likely to stand out to people. You can actually probably spend less than what you would have felt like you had to spend to send everything out in December.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to stand out more, and people will remember you when you break free from what it feels like you have to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
will say that's a thing that I talk about a lot in the book is there's nothing that you have to do ever. Right. So other than, be ethical,
Of
all
course.
this, right. Aside from that, right. And following regulations and whatnot, that's all important. But as far as like we have to offer discounts because everyone in our industry does, or we have to be in person because that's the
Mm-hmm.
way it's always been done. We have to sell this one thing. We have to negotiate. We have to whatever it is. You don't have to
No.
do anything that you don't want to do. And sometimes if no one else is doing it, it's not necessarily because there's any good reason other than that herding instinct. And so, if you say, what might it look like if no one's ever done a membership model in our industry before, how would we do that? What would that look like? And how might we figure that out? And so if you set that up, maybe you found yourself a space where you're a great comparison point and you have a bunch of people that have been just waiting for you and someone who is ready to take that leap.
I love to call to my customers when in the date it was like 1 year after the first order.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Look, I'm calling you because just 1 year ago I was there with my sales training, and I want to thank the confidence that you have on me. Okay, and it is always a good opportunity. I'm not calling to sell. I'm not
Right.
calling to resell. I'm just calling to say 1 year ago you have confidence on me. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
And the people get surprised. Like you said, if I call on Christmas, well, it will be like another call, and I need to buy the last gift. No, I'm not going to answer this call.
Yes.
Well, there's another two concepts that I love a lot. And I'm talking about the framing, okay?
Mm.
So what role does customer perception and framing play in effective pricing strategies, grounded in this behavioral economics?
Oh, yes. Framing, as you know from my first book, especially, framing is one of my very, very favorite concepts. And the thing that I think is most important for anyone as you're looking to start trying some of this, it's really the easiest thing that you can start playing around with and experimenting. And framing is just essentially that how you say something matters more than what you say.
Mm-hmm.
And there are way more ways to say something than you probably realize when you stop and think about it. And so the example here being, imagine we're going to assume that you love a yogurt parfait and you're really excited that you happen to be at a restaurant and they have 2 yogurt parfaits on their menu, and you're deciding, oh, which one of these do I want to get? And you see, there are actually 2. They're so close. The only thing that's different between them is that one is labeled as being 90% fat free, and the other is labeled as being 10% fat. So, which one do we want to buy? And for just, thousands of people around the world, everybody pretty overwhelmingly says, 90% fat free is the one that I want. It feels a lot better. Logically, we know they're the same, right? But it feels so different in the way that we
Yes.
hear that, right? And so when you look at the way that you're talking about, especially if you're looking at numbers, so there's a difference between saying you're saving $10 or it's 20% off versus, buy one, get one versus the discount, or, if you're giving something away as a free gift with purchase versus taking like I said, a discount off of the pricing. There are a lot of options of things that you can be doing here. And so that, again, how you say it matters more than what you're saying. So you can look at subject lines on your emails or what you're sharing on social media or advertising or the pitches that you're making, whether it's at the beginning or the end. There are just never ending opportunities to be considering those frames and to tweak them.
When you talk about framing, I think we need to think that our brain loves everything that is simple. When you need to reflect a lot, it means that your brain, it's not so easy to take a decision, right? So I think it happens while you are talking. I remember, I have two kids and they are both, they have problems with lactose. Okay. And there is a type of cheese in Portugal, and it is flamingo. And during the production, the cheese lost all the lactose. The truth is, the labels that have lactose free, when I have a lot of things to do, I take that, knowing that, all the flamingo cheese don't have lactose. But just hear that phrase, lactose free. Okay, I want it.
Right. Yep. The thing that you see in that moment when you're really busy and overwhelmed, and it can feel like it's not important to a lot of people, but calling attention to the important thing and knowing, and for someone who doesn't know that those cheeses are
of course
all right, that you need to be considering. There are the people that have been buying from you forever, and there are people that are maybe just found out they can't have lactose and they don't know what options they have, right? So there's a big mix. Personally, I have celiac disease, so gluten-free is the one that we're always having to look for, certified gluten-free. And you'll have people say, well, it's meat, like it shouldn't ever have gluten. Like, oh yeah, that is perhaps true, and yet you would be surprised at like processing and manufacturing, and I have to worry about contamination. And so if like this bottled water is labeled as gluten-free, I'm more likely to buy it, right? Because it doesn't matter what it is, because I can get really sick, right? So it matters to me. But yeah, in the book I have a set of, and now I don't remember, it's like 7 or 8 different reframes. Maybe, I mean, who knows? There are a bunch of kind of categories here. And so thinking about how you can make it a gift, how you can say it more simply, how you can be more precise with things. So the simple piece, and making it rhyme. It's a silly thing, but we don't think that should matter. But we tend to think that when things rhyme, they're more knowledgeable, truthful, and honest than when they don't, which is kind of silly. But that's just how our brains kind of work. And so when we think about, when you get overwhelmed, you're thinking about selling and you're all psyched up in your own head, you start throwing out a lot of big words and you talk in a way that's kind of it's like helping you to feel like you know what you're talking about, but the other person is actually believing you less and less. So when you can speak more simply about whatever it is that you're doing, people feel more comfortable. They think you're more knowledgeable, and truly, I've heard that he didn't actually say this, but it's attributed by some people to Einstein, of saying if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it well enough yourself.
That's true.
Whether or not he said it or not, I think it is very true statement that being able to simplify so that anybody can understand what you're doing, you have to know the work really, really well to be able to bring that together. And that's comforting for people, right? To feel like they understand, not making them feel stupid in that moment.
No.
And so that there are a lot of
Okay.
options there.
We have already talked a lot of your books, and well, I would like to share with everyone that later I will put in the Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but this is the link for your free books, okay? But later I will put in Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So, Melina, we are talking about framing, and well, let's put this in a little more. Well, people are listening us, are listening our concepts. So, how can companies leverage insights from behavioral economics to make their pricing more appealing and effective in driving sales?
Well, a main thing that I always would recommend is to be thinking about what that value is to the person on the other side. Who are you selling to? What do they value? What problems are they trying to solve? What are they using now? And to
Mhm.
know what is it that you can be, where are you solving those little problems along the way? And how can you showcase it to make it really clear that you are their best choice, right? So it's a series of questions to be able to ask. And again, I have many, even more than that in the book, right? But as you go through the process to know, you know, so often the thing that you think you need to say, like, you're not your best customer more often than not, right? You're not buying the thing that you're able to sell, especially if you are, a business owner. So you created whatever it is that you're selling. You understand it in a way that the person who might need you probably doesn't get. And so we end up using way too much jargon,
Mhm.
along the way. So even just simplifying and removing jargon is a really big tip. Another one in that simplification process, removing a bunch of friction and sludge and extra steps that you are asking people to do. If you break down again into the small micro moments, if you
Mhm.
say, what I just need them to do the one next thing. It's like, what's the next little thing on the path to buying something from
Yes.
me down the line? But we tend to get hung up in this idea of like, well, 6 months from now, we might want to know this information about them and they're filling out the form. So we might as well put in these extra 6 boxes for them to complete. I had recently I was going to sign up for a webinar, a free webinar, and it had
Mhm.
like 4 pages worth of information they wanted you to fill out, including, how long you've owned your company, and what the revenue is, and the total number of employees, and I mean, just never ending set of stuff. Um, and people are going to bail on those sorts of things. And like, sure, it would be nice to know those things eventually. But if you say right now, it would be just really nice to know who even comes to our website and is interested in us. And so we're going to set up a newsletter or a tip sheet or something that we're doing that we're just giving out all the time. And
Mhm.
so we want people to be able to sign up for that as easily as possible. And
Of
so
course.
we definitely need their email address, right? We absolutely need that because that's how we send it, we'll say in this
Mhm.
case. Is there anything else that you actually need? Like, yes, it might be nice to have their name. Maybe you don't even need it though, right? It can be optional. It doesn't have to be a required field. Sure, it'd be great if you had their phone number. Uh, do you have to have it though to just get them on the list? No?
Here the point is reciprocity. I mean,
Right.
okay,
Mhm.
to the webinar, what is your email? Okay, now, if you tell me how many employees you have, I can send you an exercise with some topics and concepts. Okay,
Right.
And now, if you want an ebook, okay, probably I need, when do you think, when you expect to have, I don't know, some trainings to your employees?
Right.
And I think here it is more that point, reciprocity.
For sure. Yeah. And it's okay to be just nurturing that list for a long time.
Of
There's a
course.
reason these are called drip campaigns and nurture sequences, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you approach it instead of just in that space of reciprocity, and as you said early on, I end every episode of the Brainy Business by saying, "Be thoughtful." I also end all my books that way. It's a signature line in my emails. It's
Mm-hmm.
everything, and instead of looking for what you can be getting from this person and how quickly you can get them closed and like move on to the next, which it's again natural sort of tendency in our brains to go that way. And if you can go, fight that instinct a little bit and say, if I was this person, what would I really, really value in this moment? What would
Of
I
course.
be delighted to receive, to hear? Just a little tip, a tidbit, a something that the piece that someone says, "Oh my goodness, you get me." Right? Like they got it. They knew what I needed in this exact moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that resonates and people remember. I have an example in The Truth About Pricing from a friend that Dan Gingiss that he had heard on his show somebody shared about, but it's a guy that his child was in the hospital, I think had needed surgery of some kind. So it was at a children's
Okay.
hospital and he'd been rushing around all day and dealing with everything and being like dad, being like strong, trying to be,
Okay.
bearing the burden for the whole family. And the first, moment at the end of the day, he went in to use the restroom and in that moment realized this is really the first time he's had to like process the stress of his child going through this difficult thing. He went and washed his hands, looks up, and on the mirror, there's a sign that says, "Hang in there, Dad," which is just like, ugh, I barely got it out without crying through the thing. Right. But like he
Mm-hmm.
said, feeling so seen in that moment and knowing that's exactly like what he needed, what the family needed, and that they got it, that didn't cost barely anything when you think about a hospital and how much, and the person's already there, right? Like
Of
they've
course.
already committed and invested, but you're going to tell that story to people. And if somebody has something they have to, if hopefully there's nothing for this family again, but if it is, you think they're going to want to go anywhere else? No. Right. So a little bit of thoughtfulness, that little gift goes a long way.
Be human. That's the
Yes.
point.
Yes.
That's the
Across the
point.
board.
Here, Melina, I have a bad and a good news to tell you. We have 3 minutes left. It means that is running a lot. Okay. And I have always a space when our listeners wanted to question something to you. But
Yeah.
before that, I would like to share one moment. Okay, here we have. Okay, not easy. Let me put no. What I'm doing, I don't know. I'm sorry. Oh, that's great. Okay, that's your website. Okay, I would
Yes.
like here you have your link to your TED Talk. It's amazing. It's 13 minutes and worth it. And now you have here something about your books, your experience. Okay, do you want to talk about the service that you can share with the companies, Melina?
Yeah. Well, what I would say is, and thank you for sharing the
No.
TEDx. It finally came out last week. It's been one week since it came out. It's called "There's Nothing Magical About Monday," and except for, as we said, this Monday and last Monday, as there have been some important Monday events. So for anybody who does want to learn more about my books, to check out the TEDx, the podcast, to see about consulting or speaking, you can just go to thebrainybusiness.com and learn all about that sort of option and check out what you're looking for. And you can find me on all the socials as the Brainy Biz, BIZ, and as Melina Palmer on LinkedIn.
Yes, that's true. Thanks a lot, Melina.
Yeah.
Let me remove. Okay, it's easier to remove.
Yes.
Well, talking about the questions, when we talked about the difference between a quality and price company, what side are you? We have questions from Maria João, and she asks, well, and when the customer is looking for value but wants to negotiate price?
Yes. Well, and I saw that this question from Maria actually came in before we even were talking about quality and value. So we had the right terminology and things in here. And so maybe we answered it throughout. I had this on my brain as we were talking a little bit. So one piece being, if you are a value business in the definitions that we gave, then potentially you would be open to negotiating on price, and that's okay. What I always would recommend is to make a decision. In behavioral science and psychology, we talk about the a hot, cold empathy gap. We have action intention gap. So when you're in a cold state, deciding, do we want to give discounts or not? Are we willing to negotiate price or not? And then be willing to hold to it in the moment when someone asks, where you can say, we just don't do that, and know that that's okay, right? And not everyone's going to be your customer. So if you make a decision up front, whether or not you're willing to negotiate, and if so, how much and when do you offer it and how does this work? Just don't use it as a crutch, right? So if you've just raised your prices and it feels uncomfortable and like you have to say, don't do it that way. But you can have an option that if it's, we're willing to do a bundle for something, just know the rules and know that it's okay. And also know it's okay to not do it and say you don't. And it doesn't mean that they won't buy. Some people just love to ask, right? And that's okay. It's your role to decide what you're willing to do for your company, and then go with it. And if they choose not to buy, know that it's okay. It doesn't mean that nobody will. Right?
Okay. And there is, with my experience, when people is trying to negotiate the price and is looking for value, with my experience, it always happens with the first sale. I'm sorry. This means that when I resell, they don't ask me the price because they have already know the value. Okay, I think it could help. Okay, another point, and it is with Nuno Miguel Moreira. The importance of AI today must be used in order to improve our productivity and the knowledge. The human capacity to interact, feel, evaluate, and create empathy only exists in human behaviors. As Melina is saying, if everyone delivers bottles of wine for Christmas, we'll just be another one doing that. Okay. Well, it's not a question, it's more a comment. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to Francisco Martins dos Santos. Okay. Do you have... okay. That's always the question, Melina. Do you have any strategy to present the value into numbers? For example, how does it worth having extended warranty, less spare parts needs, etc.? How do you do that?
Well, the short answer is it depends, right? And that context is really important, and you can start to figure out what's going to make sense for you. All this being said, going back to one of the things that I mentioned early on about the anchoring and relativity, and knowing that when we think about selling something, so like cars, comes to mind as we talk about extended warranty and spare parts and things like that, right? So when you go buy a car, typically they will have the most, they don't show you the lowest thing or price it low and then say, and if you want to add on a sunroof, if you want to add on leather, if you want to
Mm-hmm.
add on this and this, this is $1,500 and this is $800 and add, because people will start very low and kind of stay there. You set the wrong anchor, right? So if you have this bundled version that you do the pricing where it has all those most common features and benefits included in, you set now this higher anchor. And then somebody, if they say, well, how can we get that price down a little bit? And then you look and say, okay, well, if I remove the backup camera, I'm going to save like $2 a month over the life of the loan. We're loss averse, less likely to want to take things away when it's put onto them. So if you can create a bundle that has those things in it in the package, and that's what you present to start, and they can have the option if they want to take it away or not, that's a way that can make it easier to include more of those
Mm-hmm.
things into that pricing. So that's a place to start, at least.
Do you agree that it's always important, and I think in this case, when we can discover the pain or the pleasure behind the sale or behind the buyer, because with that it's more easier to choose what the customer wants. And probably you want extended warranty, but you are not trying to guessing, but you know what you are solving.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes a big difference. And there's some interesting research, a great paper on the pain of paying, and that there are different categories where we actually prefer to have everything paid up front, and some where we're okay paying for a longer time.
Mm-hmm.
So something like a washing machine, or your house or your car, those sorts of things, you're okay to be making payments on, so you can have the thing up front, and it's we're reminded of the value of the thing we have while we have it. Whereas,
Okay.
going on a vacation, if you can pay for everything up front versus getting the bill later, you enjoy it more if you're not having to think about those payments when you get back. So something like all expenses paid, but you do it before you go,
Yes.
it makes a difference. So understanding, again, like you said, that experience, what category you fall into and where those values are, makes a big difference.
Okay, Melina, I want to thank you. Well, there's a lot of more contents in your book about pricing, and I endorse everyone to buy the book, because it is very important to define the pricing strategy. I want to thank you, Melina, to be here. Don't go away. I'm just saying goodbye to our listeners. So be there behind the scenario, okay? Bye bye, Melina.
Bye, thanks.
Bem, meus caros, muito, muito obrigado. Hoje foi um episódio que vai ficar para sempre, pelo menos na minha memória. Eu vou partilhar, assim que possível, todos os conteúdos que nós aqui temos. Para todos aqueles que subscreveram a newsletter, vocês vão receber rapidamente um bónus, e provavelmente haverá uma surpresa mais tarde. Muito, muito obrigado, e por favor, deixem-me o vosso feedback, quer na live de hoje, quer no próprio Spotify, quer no YouTube. Eu fico a aguardar imenso, e por favor, partilhem qual o próximo tema ou convidado que gostariam de receber aqui. Muito e muito obrigado.
Attention, Parar para Vender fans. Neuro Business School in Barcelona is where neuroscience meets business. Get top education with their MBA, Masters and Bachelor programs available online and in person. Save 5% with promo code Parar para Vender 5. Visit their website and level up your business expertise.